Today on the Locked On Hornets podcast, we take a trip to the rotation station, but does anybody get left off of the train entirely? Then we'll talk about Jonathan Kaminga, the Golden State Warriors, Jonathan Kaminga negotiations. Do you want the Hornets to still, at this point, get in on the Kaminga situation? And then we'll see if we actually get to who wore it best, 0-0. All today, Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. There's Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also, Yahoo Sports Daily with Caroline Fenton and Jason Fitz. I'm Walker Bale. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Choo-choo! Rotation station time. It's been a while since we've been there. I'm excited to hop back on board. We are not too far away from the regular season starting. Actually, just a quick update. We'll have the media coaches luncheon on Friday. I'm going to skip the luncheon. I love the luncheon, and I've not been able to go the last couple of years because I host the midday show. And, of course, you're talking about a midday meal, and so I never get to go to the luncheon.
Typically lunch, eating midday.
It's not brunch, or else maybe I could go. It'd be a little bit tighter. Breakfast, I could just go.
You got to start lobbying.
I need a brunchin is what I would like to advocate for. But I will be going this year. Shout out to Willie P for hosting the show for the first hour, and then we can, I guess, talk about it. Like, the wording is a little weird on this year's luncheon in that it's not an on the record luncheon, really, but like I think maybe what they mean is, and this has always been the case, you're not allowed to live tweet or say anything and that makes sense. That's how it's always been. Nobody's updating as the coach gives you comments. It's not a regular press conference, so to speak, but usually people will talk about it afterwards. So anyways, it just a little bit different with the emphasis on that. I still probably think it's just, hey, this is not your typical presser type of situation. And of course, you'll be able to talk about some of the updates we get a little bit later on.
No, listen, I've got you covered. All you do is you say hypothetically before everything that you reveal from the luncheon, including what you ate. So hypothetically, I got the filet mignon. Hypothetically, he may be high on Trey Mann this year.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Hypothetically, it saves us a lot. It's when we used to, what did we used to say to save us? Speculation. We had to speculate and then play the speculation.
Yeah, we had
imaging.
Speculation sound.
That's right.
Reckless speculation.
Reckless speculation.
You can always say allegedly. We have a lot of words in this business that are essentially legalese to make sure that you are legal and you don't get sued.
So I'm going to try not to get sued when I report back on, if I report back on Monday.
Hypothetically.
The Monday after the Friday coaches luncheon. Anyways, maybe we ask him some rotation station stuff. Doug, take us to the rotation station, and I guess we got to figure out who's left off of the train.
Well, I think that's the big question that's in everyone's minds. Everyone, the whole nation, they can't quit talking about it. No, it's the people, the sickos, that are paying close attention to this team, and maybe they even subscribe to the Sicko Brigade. Join subtext.com/Locked On Hornets, and they get access to this neato rotation station document that I have up on the YouTube screen right now. And they're looking at this thing and they're saying, okay, starters. Maybe they disagree and don't think that Josh Green is a starter. They don't think Mason Plumlee. You can argue with that right now. None of this is really in stone yet until we get into camp a little bit. But everyone agrees: Ball, Green, Miller, Bridges, Plumlee, Mann, Sexton, Knipple, Grant Williams, Moussa Diabate. There's 10, okay? They can only have 15. They can have 3 two-ways, but they can only have 15 rostered players, okay? Then you get into the uh-oh category, and I've got Spencer Dinwiddie, Pat Connaughton, Liam McNeely, Tijon Salon, Ryan Kalkbrenner in the uh-oh category, your third string. And then in the swarm category, I've got KJ Simpson on a two-way. I've got Damian Baugh on a two-way. I've got Nick Smith Jr. I've got Sion James, who is on a contract. I've got Drew Peterson on a two-way. And then I've got Daquan Jeffries in a question mark column with his $2.7 million non-guaranteed that takes up 1.7% of the cap. Okay, so quick math here on the calculator. Beep, boop, boop, boop. That's like 3 players that they have to cut. And again, not counting the two-ways. The two-ways are filled up with Simpson, Baugh, and Peterson. Now, they could shift those around. Like Baugh could get the heave-ho, and they could give it to someone else. But, yeah, they've got to make 3 decisions here.
Yeah, you're right. The 3 questions they have are, right now at least, the 3 essential ones they have are, who are they going to cut? To me, Daquan Jeffries is the most likely guy. It just makes sense that he's going to be gone. So really, we can dwindle this thing down to 17. Then it becomes interesting with Nick Smith Jr., who this Hornets team and Charles Lee, that regime specifically, did seem to buy in on figuring out if he had enough potential to keep him on board. And they threw a lot at him in Summer League. That's well documented. We also saw the Hornets sign a ton of guards, and every time they would bring a new one on, we would expect, well, that means Trey Mann's gone. Oh, nope, Trey Mann's coming back? All right, well, at least now they're done signing guards. Oh, wait, no, they're signing Spencer Dinwiddie? Oh, why would you sign him and then cut him as this vet guard, especially if you still drastically want point guard depth with the injury history of LaMelo, which we've kind of understood Nick Smith Jr. isn't that guy. If KJ Simpson and Nick Smith Jr. were battling for a 16th/15th spot, then maybe there would be competition, but KJ's on a two-way, so it doesn't count towards the 15-man roster. I think all of those reasons are the reasons as to why I think Nick Smith Jr. is probably gone as well. And then it gets hard. I think the guys would be Pat Connaughton. Is that it?
Spencer Dinwiddie. To me, like,
you think
Pat
Spencer
Connaughton,
Dinwiddie still?
Yeah, because I think the $9.4 million on an expiring is going to be too juicy, too valuable come the trade deadline versus the $2.3 million for Spencer Dinwiddie. You know what thought came to mind as I looked through the rotation station? It wasn't the number of guards that they acquired, veteran guards that they acquired, that made this difficult. It's the fact that they drafted 4 players and signed them all to contracts. Like, if Sion James wasn't on a deal already, then you'd say, all right, one of Drew Peterson or Damian Baugh is probably going to get cut or moved to some kind of swarm deal. And then you just slot James or Kalkbrenner, either one. You slot either one of those players. I just mentioned James because Kalkbrenner plays a position where they're a little thin. But you slot either one of those players into a two-way deal and call it a day. But they just can't do that because they've signed all 4 of these guys to guaranteed money. And so I think, and by the way, I think that's a smart move because it's all about cost control. That's the name of the game right now. And they've got enough assets to go and make to fill up the books in a couple of years. But these cost control contracts, particularly if 2 or 3 of these rookies end up panning out and being solid rotation players beyond Con Knipple, then you've put yourself in a really good position financially. But at the same time, it's going to crunch your available spaces. I have 2 questions for you. One, did Nick Smith Jr. get a fair shot? If he gets released, are we going to say, oh, man, got a raw deal, didn't get enough burn, or do you feel like he got a good enough shot?
No, absolutely got a fair enough shot. He had plenty of opportunity. In fact, I would think you could say he got more of an opportunity with the Hornets because of all the injuries that took place. He had a chance. And just like we can go back to some of the other guards, James Bouknight comes to mind, Steve Clifford kept putting him out there. Bouknight never delivered, and Nick Smith Jr. delivered a lot more than what Bouknight did. But even so, it's more so of you got a fair shot. You showed us a couple of things. You improved in a few different areas. It's just this is the decision that this team decided to make, and unfortunately, that's the business. Bouknight was a lot of his fault, just what it was. Nick Smith Jr., I guess some of it's his fault in that he didn't take the bull by the horns and just blow us out of the water with all the opportunity, but also he's a victim of circumstance in that the Hornets need point guard depth drastically with Melo's injury history, and they thought that they should bring in a few more veterans, which I agree with, and he's just the odd man out. So, yeah, I think he got a fair shot. I won't look at him having been dealt an unfair hand.
If you're not taking the bull by the horns, what are you taking it by?
I mean, considering it's a bull, yikes. Anyways, no need to explore any further there.
Nick Smith Jr., it's going to be funny to look, not funny. I mean, it's just going to be interesting for future Hornets historians to look back at this era and look at Nick Smith Jr., James Bouknight, and you throw Malik Monk in there and go, man, they just spent years in the desert looking for a two guard that can shoot. And they found, or a two guard that could score effectively, even if you wanted to broaden the scope. And they just could not, no matter where they tried to draft it, I guess except for the top 5, and none of those guys were top 5 picks. But middle of the draft, late first round, they just could not find that guy.
Malik Monk shouldn't be in there. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
I mean, he shouldn't be on the Hornets.
You always bring him up. I don't.
He's everywhere!
Jonathan Kaminga, speaking of somebody that doesn't want Malik Monk, to be honest with you, I guess Golden State is that team because of some of the offers that we've seen via the Kings and the Warriors.
It's weird.
But the Warriors, I guess, don't want Kaminga or Monk badly enough if we think Kaminga's going to get traded. If he does, should the Hornets still be in on the Kaminga sweepstakes? We'll talk about that coming up next. This episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. You can always reach for your favorite flavor. There's plenty of flavors to choose from because it's refreshing and it gives you that quick lift before a busy day. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. More Locked On Hornets ahead. The Jonathan Kaminga situation is interesting because you have this back and forth where we just don't know if they're going to come to an agreement or if Kaminga ends up being traded. There was this big profile by Sam Amick on The Athletic headlined, Jonathan Kaminga wants security, the Warriors want flexibility, who blinks first? And we've seen some of the deals given out here. What's the latest contract on the table for Kuminga? Because it does seem like the ball's in his court now on whether he wants to agree to said deal or not.
I don't know. The numbers keep changing. The point is this. I mean, it seems like both sides keep flip-flopping on what they want, what they don't want, because you said security, but it looks like, Kuminga wants a player option. The Warriors don't want to give him a player option, so the Warriors want security, and that they want to secure a deal for Kuminga in the future and have the ability to do so without being scared that he's going to opt out or another team be scared that he's going to opt out. Really, my only Hornets question for this is less, do you want the Hornets to get involved? Because I think, just having my finger on the pulse of Hornets Nation, every time we bring this topic up, they're like, no, please God, no, please stay away. I mean, you'll have a few people that look at his ability to score 26, 28 points in a semifinal in the playoffs, be able to take over a team without Steph Curry and say, all right, I can help you grind out a win here. And they say, hey, why not? You have a few people like that, but most of the people look at this situation and go, hey, if you can't play with Steph Curry, then what are we talking about here? And so I think the only question is, like, are you relieved? Are you surprised that the Hornets have so far stayed out of these rumors and not taken the bait of, hey, this is the kind of disgruntled, talented young player that you could take advantage, of the situation and go and get if you're an organization like the Hornets? Are you relieved that they haven't taken that bait?
Relieved is strong, but I'd rather them not. By the way, when I asked about the contract, according to Shams, it does seem to be the Warriors are now offering Kuminga a 3-year, $75 million deal. And you're right about the option. Kuminga wants player option. Warriors want.
So that's
that
Bridges
team
money.
option.
I mean, that's,
Yeah. $25 million annually. And the Warriors said no reportedly, they said no to a Kings first-round pick and Malik Monk offer for Kaminga. Because the Warriors don't want to lose Kuminga for nothing after he's like basically the last guy of some of the high draft picks they had, with the little losing that they did in between the monster championship runs. Sandwiched in there was James Wiseman, Moses Moody, and Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga's the only real asset that you have within those 3 draft picks. And so I guess what the Warriors view is wanting to trade him, wanting that flexibility, but locking him in, buying themselves some time, and then if they want to move him, then they'll get something really valuable, and I guess something more than just a first-round pick and Malik Monk. Okay, back to the Hornets. Do I want the Hornets to go after Kuminga? No, not really. $25 million annually, that's a decent amount of money that you're spending for a guy that I'm not sure fits what Charles Lee wants to do. And I do think Brandon Miller is someone that I've considered very flexible. I think you can put Miller into almost any situation and it can work. I don't think that's true of Kaminga. And especially if you're talking about both of these guys still liking to take some mid-range shots. The Brandon Miller 3-point volume went crazy. We know about that last season. It was wild. Despite popular belief, what really is true is that Brandon was still taking some mid-range jumpers. Like he was still in the average to above average frequency in where he liked to get to his elbows and his mid-range jumpers on the floor. He was still taking a decent amount, and that's what Kaminga does. Doug, I also think in the form of just finding a guy that attacks the rim relentlessly, I think they got the mid-range attack the rim relentlessly guy already in Colin Sexton on an expiring deal. So I guess if you wanted that in the form of a bigger body, then maybe Colin Sexton comes off of the books next year, and then that's when a Kaminga contract comes into play and you could be interested there. But like, I don't know, the fit doesn't make as much sense as it may have before free agency. And even then, I think you probably had a little harder time figuring out all the pieces working together with this perfect picture. So I would rather not. Relieved is strong. Like, oh my God, thank God they didn't go after him. There's some reclamation project enticing stuff here, but I'd rather them not.
Yeah, but you guys, the problem with the reclamation angle is you got to give them the money first.
Yeah.
And then do it.
It'd be the risk, right? Like on one hand, you want the Hornets to take the risk on a guy that's really young and talented, and maybe he blossoms into something in a change of scenery scenario. I get we talk out of both sides of our mouth to some degree in wanting him to take a risk and yet being pretty choosy with that risk. I'm being choosy here.
Well, I'd rather them take a risk on a guy who seems like he has all the want to in the world and needs a skill boost in some area. Like that's the kind of risk. Or maybe it's tough to say this now, obviously, but an injury risk or a guy that's coming off of a major injury that it's like, well, it's not a long-term concern. We can make it, but it's scaring off a few other teams. I mean, I think those are some calculated risks. The problem with this risk, I think, is you're hoping that he turns it around emotionally. And I think that's the riskiest thing of all, is to bet on that kind of thing, because you're getting all of these reports, and we've been getting them for years now about how, like, he and Steve Kerr don't seem eye to eye. It seems like Kaminga really wants to be wanted. And the Warriors just want him to, please God, just go out there and play and fit in and don't fit out. And he keeps fitting out. And I think when you're talking about a Hornets team that is a little bit young, but mostly needs an influx of seriousness, which I think they brought in, Pat Connaughton, Spencer Dinwiddie, whoever survives that contest, Colin Sexton, that was the infusion of seriousness. To then bring Kaminga into that, I think would be a step, like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I disagree with you on the basketball fit. if all of those issues didn't exist, I would be totally on board, because I think the basketball fit, if you could promise me a shooting center so that you could have 4 shooters around him at all times, which is, again, why you think although the shooting in Golden State has slowly dissipated, why you think it would have early in his career worked out for Kuminga, because he is so good at the mid-range. He is so good at getting at the rim, and I don't think you can have enough of guys that can get to the rim. So I don't mind pairing him with Colin Sexton, because Kuminga does it, or at least 2 seasons ago, before it got so rocky in Golden State last season. 2 seasons ago, he was like almost elite level effective field goal percentage, his field goal percentage at the rim, the amount of times he got to the rim, and his mid-range game, which again frees up Brandon Miller to just take all the threes in the world and not have to worry about doing that until absolutely necessary. So I love the basketball fit. I just hate the emotional fit.
Yeah, and that's fair. There are ways. Look, here we just had an episode on transition. Like Golden State was not a team that got out on the fast break all that much, and yet when Kuminga was out there was a monster increase. So like you're talking about, plus 7.3% off of steals. They would manufacture a transition possession, plus 1% on all transition plays with Golden State. Like that's was in the 78th percentile. Like he'll make you move faster. And I do like the idea of LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller at the 2, Jonathan Kuminga at the 3, Miles Bridges at the 4. Now you just got a bunch of length. That, though, leads me to, do you have enough playmaking outside of LaMelo, or is LaMelo still called upon to just, do you have enough shooting too? Like, because we don't have a shooting big guy, unless you count Kalkbrenner, and I just don't think you can count him yet. So if you bring in Kuminga and you're running him, if you're paying him $25 million, the guy's getting significant run. So it's LaMelo, Brandon, Kuminga, Miles,
Is
Musa.
it Miles? Is it Miles, or is that part of the sign-in trade?
If he's part of the trade, then now Kuminga's probably like this 4, and is Knipple out there that does help the shooting.
Oh,
So then 2 Knipple, 3 Miller, 4 Kuminga, which that would be enticing. Here's what I would also say. If he was a better defender and used that size and athleticism and length functionally way more so on that end of the court, like I think I would, I don't know about all in, but I'd be able to swallow this a lot easier. And in fact, I probably would want to go after it a little bit more so. But
and the
I've
Hornets,
just got too many questions.
That's it. I mean, the Hornets need a non-committed defender like they need a hole in the head. Like they've got enough of that right now. They're going to, I think that Lee is going to grit his teeth through this season watching what they do, or really what they don't do defensively, and then try to fix it next season. But that would be a problem too. But again, I would overlook all that if I thought this guy had what it takes to like really compete night in, night out, and in the playoffs, and fit in, and not constantly cause problems. He won't. I think Kuminga is the kind of guy that wherever he goes, he's going to cause some sort of issue. It won't be the same issue. He won't always bring up the same issue, but it's just going to be one issue after another. And it feels like the Warriors understand that, and they don't want to be caught with the hot potato. So, again, that's why, they don't want to give up the player option, because at the end of the day, they want to come away with something for all of the trouble that they've gone through with Kaminga. And for all of those reasons, I just don't think the Hornets should buy. I will say I'm relieved, because I think it's the kind of thing that I feel like Hornets organizations of old may have been a little too tempted to go after. But I think, and I could eat my words here because this story could move, but I think Jeff Peterson's smarter than to go after a player where the only reported team that's been interested is the Sacramento Kings. I have a general rule. If the Sacramento Kings want him, I don't want him.
Well, and Golden State, and they still didn't give up enough for Golden State, right? Like they wanted him, and even they weren't willing to go to the value that Golden State still has in Jonathan Kuminga, which that's the rule. You want to make a trade with Sacramento as much as possible. And they just want to be the Chicago Bulls as bad as the Suns want to be the Hornets. Like it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So last thing on Kuminga, if a first round pick in Malik Monk doesn't get it done, then what would you do if you're the Hornets? You're talking about lots of assets. Are you talking about a protected first round pick, and who's the equivalent of that in Malik around here? I mean, I guess is it Miles just to make the money match up on a sign and trade? So you send Miles to Golden State. I don't probably help their team defense. Draymond Green would probably be a fan with the Michigan State connection. We know that those guys have a relationship. Like, I wonder if Draymond would try to swing something in that regard. They both play very similar positions, except Draymond can play 5. Miles isn't playing 5 like that. Like, it'd be tough. It'd be kind of tough to make the player part of it work with Golden State still wanting to win now. Who would be the guy that you go after outside of Miles that was worth it for the Hornets that would also help Golden State win now? Because I don't have anybody else for you, really, on that front. It's Miles, or it's really not anybody else that the Hornets would be willing to give up.
Well, the thing that would tempt Golden State about Miles is that his contract expires in 2027. And guess who is going to be available for pursuit in 2027? Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic. And the Hornets are in prime position. Man, his $22 million in 26-27, I just cannot wait to see what Chef Jeff cooks up with that, because there are going to be, I think, plenty of teams that are going to look at that and say, yes, 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 because then that money comes off the books, frees us up to go after Nick or Giannis.
And even for Golden State, you're right. All we have to do is wait 2 more years with Green and Curry, and then we'll be good. Except we don't know if they're going to be all that good anymore. It's a tough situation, and that's why they're playing hardball with Jonathan Kuminga. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
I think we're going to do it. Who wore it best? I don't think this is going to be a number 3 situation. Who wore it best? 0 coming up. Final segment. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Feels like we're doing it. 0. We're close. We skipped a couple numbers, but we're very close to finishing Who Wore It Best.
We are, but before we do that, one thing I forgot to mention during our rotation station, I won't take us too far because I have another thing that I want to get to with this 0 thing. But one of the things that I forgot when we did rotation station is I just wanted to say that I'm so glad that the Hornets have these decisions to make, because we've seen in years past where they have really coveted the flexibility that comes with having the 15th roster spot open. Yeah. And what that really meant was they wanted their wallet to make sure that wallet really flexed with as much money as possible. So I'm really glad that you are going to have Spencer Dinwiddie, Pat Connaughton, Nick Smith Jr., maybe Jeffries, all of these players really competing along with these young guys that have everything to play for already. I just think you're going to see a different level of competition at training camp, because there will be guys literally fighting for their roster spot. Unlike in years past, I would say not unlike years past, they always fill the roster up, but you're going to have players that have real NBA experience that know how to make rosters competing at the same time. That's exciting.
No, it's a great point. Those guys are tough as hell that they drafted. Con Knipple absorbs contact well. Sion James is a bull. Ryan Kalkbrenner, we've gone through all the accolades on all the guys they drafted. They're all competitive as hell. Even Liam McNeely. McNeely was the damn leader out there in Summer League, the vocal leader who was challenging guys to bring their effort up even more so. On top of Colin Sexton, talk about a bull. Charles Lee said Colin Sexton is making practice lively. to say the least. And he laughed. He gave us a chuckle, which means there's a little bit more meaning behind it. So I'm totally with you. It's a great point. And again, with Nick Smith Jr., I think he does care. And that's what sucks about it. That's what sucks. Yes. I like him as a guy. He's been a fun interview before. I just don't know if he's probably going to be the odd man out. There's too many guards. So unfortunate. All right. What you got?
Okay, we are doing Who Wore It Best. We're wrapping this up, folks. We are really close to the finish line, and we're going to skip by the finish line because we're going to make the finish line the number 1 jersey, find out who wore number 1 best coming up, maybe at the end of the week, maybe next week. But for now, we are going to go to 00. A couple of interesting names here. 3 players have worn the 00, the goose eggs, for the Charlotte Hornets. And it starts in 95-96 with Robert Parrish, the Chief, playing next to Alonzo Mourning. That's right. The Hornets were going double center with Alonzo Mourning and Robert Parrish. I mean, imagine a guard trying to score a bucket inside against those 2 mammoth human beings. But Robert Parrish finishing his career out in Charlotte in 95-96. We move on to the player that I think of when I think of the Charlotte Hornets, particularly in the 90s. I think of this guy. I'm, of course, talking about Kentucky legend Tony Delk, who wore it for one season, 97-98. Why do I think of him? I have no idea. I speculate that maybe it's because Delk rhymes with Belk, which is a popular department store when I was growing up in Charlotte and Gastonia. And so Delk, Belk, I think that's just a weird brain connection I have. But I remember him in the purple jersey. Just him in the purple jersey. I don't know why. 97-98. Finally, final name here. 2016-17. This is interesting. This says 16-17. I'm going to assume this counts as 15-16. They numbered this weird on Basketball Reference. So I'm going to assume he wore 00 in both years that he was with the Hornets. And that's Spencer Hawes, 00.
Yeah, it says 2016-17 for Hawes. You're right. It is a little bit weird. And he did play 92 games with the Hornets. This one, it's pretty tough. You know who could wear it best if he was on the team? Jonathan Kaminga, who wears 00 for Golden State, by the way. He'd be the answer to this question. Here's my shocking stat. Shocking is strong, but it's surprising. Robert Parrish played the most amount of games with the Hornets than any of the other players that wore 00. In fact, my man Robert Parrish played 155 games with the Hornets. If you know anything about the Hornets, anytime we try to put, the players in historical context, we often acknowledge that these guys didn't stay here very long. Doug, Robert Parrish has played the 55th most amount of games in a Hornets uniform. I think that's wild. And I know 55 might not be all that crazy. It's like, hey, you're still pretty far down the list. But he was here, and for 2 years, he played 81 games his first season, and then he played 74 games his second. That's a lot of games for a 40-year-old in 2 seasons to play, to climb up to the 55th spot. Just by sheer volume, it might be Parrish, man.
Both Parrish and Hawes bring up the only point that I really have when it comes to the 00 category. And that point is that when you're a playoff team, it's weird how certain players make contributions that are memorable in your mind and don't show up as much on paper. Like, I do remember Spencer Hawes, who shot 37% from 3 from the center position. But I do remember him making significant plays for that 15-16 team, making significant buckets for that 15-16 team.
He's a great passer. He was a really
great
good passer.
I remember him making some goofy plays, but I also remember him making some big buckets. And it's just, again, when you're a playoff team, you do have guys up and down the roster that are making big plays, that are in sync, that are healthy. And even though he only played 18 minutes a game, I remember him being like an impactful player for that team. I'm sure people who grew up watching the Zoe, LJ, Muggsy experience, I wasn't one of those kids, but I'm sure they would have great memories of Parrish providing big opportunities, big plays for those teams. And when even though you're 40 years old, you're obviously a Hall of Famer, you're a legend, but it's also probably a lot easier when you're playing next to Alonzo Mourning to go out there and make an impact, or playing against bench units to make an impact. And so, yeah, I mean, I think Parrish, just by virtue of playing the most games and being a legend, and being a fun name and a fun trivia thing for the Hornets that he finished his career here, I think it is Robert Parrish. But I just wanted to shout out my guy Tony Delk, and I want to shout out Spencer Hawes for just dropping some big threes for that playoff team.
Yeah, so last thing I'll say, too, with Hawes is you look at his playoff game log with the Hornets, and there was a game 5 that he played that the Hornets won 90-88. Hello, Courtney Lee shot. But Hawes actually played a pretty significant factor in that one. He was 3 of 5 from the field, but he was 3 of 4 inside the three-point arc, had 4 rebounds in 14 minutes, 6 points total. 3 turnovers, too, to go to your point about Spencer giving you the roller coaster type of game. It felt like Steve Clifford's Josh McRoberts light to go with the big man, good passer, white guy comparison. But it did feel like he valued that sort of player, and Spencer Hawes could give you that in 10-minute stretches where McRoberts was Steve Clifford's guy for the 1 year, and he would give it to you in 30-minute stretches. So an impact-wise, maybe Hawes gave you a little bit more in that specific game, but Parrish played some playoff games, too, against Chicago. The Hornets lost 1-3 in that 5-game series, but I don't know, man. Probably Parrish, and Parrish is a top 75 player of all time. Hornets don't have a guy that got in there where significant time was played here with the Hornets. Zoe was the closest. All right. All those reasons, I think Parrish is probably there.
Yeah, he does look like and played like if you stuck Josh McRoberts and Mason Plumlee in some kind of machine that fused them together into one body. And get this, I'm looking at his basketball reference page right now. His middle name, Mason.
Of course it is. Of course it's Mason, Spencer Mason Hawes. You know how he left, by the way? He was traded by the Hornets with Roy Hibbert to Milwaukee for Miles Bridges.
Plumlee.
Yeah. Or Miles Plumlee. Right. I apologize. Miles Plumlee. Yeah, the other play. So there you go. It's all connected. It's all a circle, man. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. That's not a good joke. Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com.
Are you circling the drain, going down the toilet? You get it.
I was like, toilet sickle. I was like, what? Toilet sickle?
Clanging,
okay,
like clanging off the rim. You get it.
Yeah, I do get it. Yahoo Sports Daily, go check it out. Jason Fitz, Caroline Fitton, Doug Branson is behind the scenes somewhere. Just trust you're watching a Doug Branson product. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.